They're nicknamed forever chemicals, PFAs. We drink them, we eat them, we breathe them. For more than 70 years, these man-made chemicals were polluting our water and making people sick. They were used in the production of non-stick cookware and stain-resistant products. Studies have found even the smallest exposure can be linked to various cancers. Virtually all Americans have detectable levels of PFAs in their blood, which means you probably do too. Our national Sinclair correspondent Mark Hyman broke the story last month.
After the news came out, Fox Champaign's Lauren Kostick started to do some digging locally, and it turns out that these forever chemicals are lurking right here in our own backyard. She joins us here in the studio now with her months-long investigation. Lauren.
Yeah, Doug, Brianna, even though some of these chemicals have been phased out, they are still everywhere. That's because the group of chemicals, PFAs, are so strong and persistent, they take thousands of years to break down. In fact, I found extremely high levels right here in central Illinois at a local Air Force base that hasn't been used in 3 decades.
Chanute Air Force Base. It was once a military powerhouse, training more than 2 million servicemen and women. Today, it's a shell of its past, with environmental concerns emerging in its water.
We detected PFAS and PFOA in shallow groundwater concentrations exceeding the EPA lifetime health advisory in 8 areas.
That was in 2014 when the Air Force did its initial test at the former base in Rantoul. They looked specifically at its fire training grounds, where the chemicals PFAS and PFOA were most used in foam to put out fires. Results came back showing levels about 1 million times higher than what is considered safe by the EPA. To learn more, we called Paul Carroll in Texas. He's the Air Force environmental coordinator for the former base.
We have knowledge that these things are in the shallow groundwater, haven't migrated to drinking water sources.
In 2017, the Air Force did widespread testing, including the local drinking aquifers.
And when they came here, they knew the chemicals were at least 3 to 15 feet deep in the ground. So they tested the surface that separates the groundwater from the drinking water. And according to them, the results pass EPA standards.
Of course, people are concerned when they hear that there's contaminants in the area that they hadn't previously heard about.
And we were too, so we reached out to John Scott, a senior chemist at the University of Illinois, to understand these chemicals better.
Oh, I became aware of these compounds, Scott, about 7 or 8 years ago.
Scott studies emerging contaminants like PFAs. He says what makes these man-made chemicals so useful also makes them very difficult to get rid of.
They're persistent. I mean, that's the key, is they're not going away. And over time, they're just going to keep accumulating in our bodies and the environment.
Scott says people are exposed to PFAs through contaminated air, soil, and water.
Just imagine if there's a fire in their training and they're just spraying this stuff, they're blanketing it all over the place. I mean, it's going to end up running off into the surface water, into the groundwater, getting trapped in the soil. And the other thing I worry about is the firefighters and the people that are exposed to this stuff.
And the question remains, have these chemicals at Chanute traveled off the base through surface water or in the soil? It's something the Air Force still doesn't know.
It'll be just like any other project that the Air Force has. It has to be prioritized, and it will be assigned the dollars whenever the priorities come out.
Which could take years.
At some point in the future, but not immediately.
And we will keep on top of this until the Air Force does more testing. Right now, they tell me Chanute is not a priority on their list because the chemicals have not contaminated the drinking water, only the groundwater. If they do look to treat any of the contaminated surface water and groundwater, it's very costly and labor intensive. In the studio, I'm Lauren Kostick. Brianna, over to you.
As we have mentioned before, this is happening nationally. Our national correspondent Mark Hyman was the one to break the story about contaminated water in a town in New York. He joins us now from Baltimore. Mark, remind us, what made you start investigating these forever chemicals?
Hey, Brianna. First of all, I was actually in Albany at WRGB CBS 6, our sister station in Albany, New York, when this whole story broke originally, and stayed on top of it because the local community, Hoosick Falls, where they had this toxic water, wasn't getting any assistance from local authorities. And so it was something we wanted to shine a spotlight on, and we had the opportunity through Inside Your World Investigate, our national investigative unit, and we did that story. So not only on Hoosick Falls, but we identified over 1,900 locations nationally in which there is known or suspected toxic chemical pollution in the local water.
Mark, what progress has been made with the EPA and the Trump administration since your story broke?
Brianna, that's a great question, and we don't have a good answer for you. During our investigation, we learned that the EPA in 2002 had launched a priority review of perfluoroctanoic acid and related chemicals in the water system. The priority review in 2002, 17 years later, has not yet been completed. So to suggest that there's any solution in the near term, it doesn't look likely.
Definitely going to be ongoing. And Mark, obviously you're going to stay on top of this story. What's next?
We are. Actually, we are doing a follow-up investigation. We're knee-deep in it right now, and I don't want to say a whole lot, but I can tell you we're breaking some news stories regarding some developments that are related to this water issue, and it's going to have a vast impact nationally. We've been on top of it. We've been working with a number of sources, and we're pretty excited about it, but most importantly, we want to get the information out to our viewers because it's going to impact essentially everyone in America. It's a great story. We're glad that we're a part of it. We're glad we can bring it to our viewers, and we're glad that we're partnering with you in the story you're doing locally. So hopefully our viewers will understand the significance of this, and that story will probably air in early January.
So are we. Thank you, Mark, for joining us, and thank you for your reporting. Again, this is just part one of our investigation. Stay with us as we bring you more developments locally and nationally.